Meanwhile, the world observed a day of zero tolerance for female genital mutilation yesterday. And although Kenya has a law that prohibits the practice and set a deadline to eliminate FGM by 2022, incidents of FGM have increased during the pandemic. Married women are also opting for FGM voluntarily, a trend that threatens to undermine the gains made in the fight against a practice that violates the women's and girls' rights to health, security, and physical integrity. Bridget Sangana has more on that.
A deserted haven could best describe the Samburu Girls Foundation. For close to a decade, this facility in Maralal has provided shelter and food to scores of girls who had run away from home to escape the cut. Enter COVID-19. They had to shut down in compliance with government directives, dashing the hopes of the girls they protected. Schools have since reopened, but some of the girls have never come back. COVID-19, it seems, fostered the FGM monster, with many young girls being married off.
I've rescued almost 10 girls around the county, and these are girls who've basically been referred to me by well-wishers and volunteers at the community level who just call and say that there's a girl here who's married off. And most of these girls are the girls who have not complied and who are maybe running away from home and are not ready to be married off. These girls vary from high school girls to standard 8, even up to class 4. COVID-19 really placed the pressure to the girl child because staying at home for 9 months is really, and being idle and all that, gives our elders time to just look at the risks this girl will bring if they're not married off.
For a long time, anti-FGM campaigns have targeted schoolgirls, but since the enactment of the anti-FGM law, the focus has changed, especially in the Rift Valley, where 10 out of the 14 counties in the region still practice the vice. Here, it is the married women who opt for the cut voluntarily.
Mama ya watoto 6 ya watoto 7 lazima atairishwe, na si ati amri ya baba yake, ni amri ya Bwana kusema bibi utatairi leo, kwa sababu unasonga ugali ya hivi, unaona kama maziwa unakamulia chini, unaona, kwa sababu wewe ni kirego ama namna gani.
Oftentimes people say men are supposed to be, they should not demand that these things are done. Kindly note that women are pushing other women to undergo FGM. In Baringo County, it is not so much the young girls as it is the married women. Once you have your first child, your second child, you have to go. And if you don't go, you're ousted from your community.
Because in areas where we have really enforced the law and ensured that young girls don't go through FGM, now we are discovering that even older women, age of 28, 30, are now going through this practice, especially in Narok, that's Transmara East, Bomet, and Kericho. It has become a serious phenomenon. Now we are trying to see. But now these are adults. It's not like they're children who need care and protection.
It is this very stigma that saw more than 20 women in Bureti, Kericho County, arrested for undergoing FGM in November last year. The women aged between 20 and 30 years are currently serving a 4-month jail term for failing to raise the 20,000 shilling fine for their freedom.
That puts a big dent in the agenda, both the SDGs and what the president said. How are we going to eliminate a practice that is so deep-rooted, where as a country, we are thinking that empowering women and the issue of economic empowerment of women is equivalent to ending FGM? That's a myth. That doesn't quite work in rural communities.
According to a 2019 report by UNICEF mapping out the prevalence of FGM in Kenya over a 30-year period, shows that while FGM has declined in some regions, northeastern, Nyanza, and eastern still lead in the number of adolescent girls who have undergone FGM.
It is not a women's issue. Millions of lives are being affected. Can you imagine if 9.3 million women went about without their eyes? What would happen? It would be a global issue. There would be campaigns. We would do everything in our power. But most importantly, we need to educate our children from when they're young. FGM conversation starts quite late. Can you imagine if it was a conversation when a child is 6 years old? So that they understand by the time they're 10, 12, when it actually happens, that this thing should never ever happen. It has to be internalized.
In fact, because of the serious crackdown, this practice has basically gone underground. And even we suspect that some of our hospitals in some of these areas that are prevalent in terms of FGM, some of the nurses actually they do it at the hospital level. When a woman is giving birth, she can be taken. In fact, the stubborn women actually they go through FGM at the point of delivery. She may not even know. That's why we want to bring elders on board so that they can also take charge of this process. For me, being the deadline, we can even declare next year that we don't have FGM in Kenya. But what guarantees do we have that do not morph, do not come out in another way, like what is happening now? Yeah. So how sustainable is that? Is our biggest problem.
The fight against FGM in this country has always been a dicey one, sometimes pitting the women against themselves, and other times pitting the men against the women. Of importance is acknowledging the government's efforts in ending FGM in Kenya. In fact, it has about a year's deadline to declare Kenya FGM-free. However, the biggest challenge for the government is combating the deep cultural beliefs that still engender FGM in Kenya. Bridget, Ghana, NTV.